comes to European style nymphing, this thing's gonna work.
Now it's off.
Is that what I have to do? Okay. Because it's showing on, okay, it's saying it's nice. Okay, I see. The big question we have to ask ourselves is where are we getting all of our information from when it comes to European style nymphing?
YouTube.
So as far as the authorities in European style nymphing, if there's going to be an article written about this particular subject, who is it coming from? If there's going to be somebody featured on a podcast, who are they speaking to that's going to be telling us about this? Who's going to be published? In, what was that? Not really. Who do you think copied Chris Preston? So all these people, yeah. So so the authorities in European style nymphing, they're teaching you one particular way. Those authorities are members of Team USA because Team USA were the first ones who discovered this particular style of nymphing. What they did is they would go out, and this was like maybe this is like Jack Dance days. This is pretty old school. They would go to these competitions, these national competitions in Europe, and go and participate in them. And back then, fly fishing Team USA would just get annihilated. It would get absolutely annihilated. And one of the excuses was, well, we don't know how to fish the rivers, which is true, we didn't. But then something happened. They had a competition that wasn't one of the big national competitions, but they had a competition that happened in the United States. Finally, the guys from Team USA said, we're going to show these guys how it's done. And what happened is some of these guys from Europe came down and took place in this particular competition that happened in the States. And Team USA, once again, was annihilated. And then that's when something happened in fly fishing that we only really see once in a generation. And if you're lucky, you can see that. And this is kind of it. Experts in the field of fly fishing said out loud, maybe we don't know everything. So, they reached out to the guy who was winning first place in all these national competitions, like the big competitions that are happening in Europe. A guy named Fly. We know him as just Fly. We don't know his last name. This guy would show up. He didn't have all this stuff back in the day. He would show up in like shoes that had like carpet glued to the bottom of them. And he was winning these national competitions with this particular style. He's Polish, and therefore it is considered as Polish style nymphing. And Team USA asked him, would you teach us this? And he said, yeah, it's for everybody, which was really cool. So they went and talked with Fly, and Team USA learned Polish style nymphing. Also, there's like kind of a funny story about Lottie's worm. That when it first came out, and it was like a really big thing maybe about 7 to 10 years ago, but it's kind of faded, as a lot of things have, and I'll explain that. So, Polish style nymphing. You are leading your flies with the current or faster. So I brought this over to give you a visual. If the current is flowing, and I flick my flies, and I hit them onto the water, I am leading my flies with the current or faster. Tight on. What happens when you have an indicator on? All right, your indicator's up here. The idea is a fish is going to eat that fly, and your indicator's going to go down. Now, there's so much video out there of saying that's not the case. These fish are eating and spitting your fly so fast that your indicator didn't even have a chance to move. And they have all kinds of video out there. So the idea behind this Polish style nymphing is you throw, And as soon as your flies hit the water, you immediately start moving them with the current. If you're waiting for your flies to sink, then you're already behind. Is this thing working? Maybe. Then you're already behind. So as soon as they flick, as soon as they hit, you're moving with the stream or faster. Polish style nymphing. The other cool thing about Polish style nymphing is that you can have a relatively short leader and still perform this particular style. And one of the ways I was actually taught by a team member, Pete Erickson, who's from here in town. He was a member of Team USA. One of the cool things about Polish style nymphing is because you can bring that leader really, really close to your rod tip. And on the Boise River, I have found the biggest fish underneath all those big snags, all those big logs that you wouldn't even think to throw an indicator through because the indicator will get snagged. So what happens is I throw and I will dip my fly rod into the water and underneath all that stuff and then bring it back up and out the other way. And that's when I have either found the biggest fish or the biggest snags. But it's always worth doing because I've caught big fish in the Boise River by doing this particular technique. So leading your flies. Okay. There's something else. When it comes to competition rules, there are certain things Team USA will not teach you. And that's because they're simply being asked, how do you do it? Which is a good question. This is a slinky. Can you see it up there? I kind of made one here with the fly. When you're doing this particular style of nymphing, this acts as a great visual aid so that way you can see what's going on underwater. So if you are not used to European style nymphing or having a tight line, having a slinky will really help. When you throw, you will hold the slinky up at about 45-degree angle and lead it downstream. When a fish hits, the slinky will ignite. And then that's when you know when to set the hook. This will also let you know how fast a fish is eating and spitting out your fly. Because what will happen is, this happens on the South Fork a lot, is you'll be throwing and you'll see something like that. Now it's either a rock or it's a fish. And I've found that most of the time, it's a fish. So think about that. I'm already leading with the current, and a fish is eating my fly and spitting it out before I even have a time to even react. So with Polish style nymphing, you throw with the current or faster. So I felt that I had to maybe speed up, right? There's always little bubbles that let you know what the current is. So I'm throwing now, and I'm pulling faster. And then now when that fish hits in that same exact spot, I have time to react. Yeah?
How do you know if it's a fish or a rock?
When you set the hook and it stays. But still, it offered the slinky is great visualization, for detecting strikes and protects from overset.
Sorry about one of your slinkies, but I've never figured out how to tie it on. Can you demonstrate where it goes when you tie it on the paper?
So the slinky is one of those. Oh yeah, also Team USA, by the way, the slinky is fading. Like, I don't see it anymore. It used to be a really big thing about 5 to 10 years ago. Everybody was making a slinky. Everybody was calling online. Everybody was figuring out how to do this so that way they can use it. It's a thing of the past anymore, and that's a shame. Why? Because it's not allowed in competition. It's too effective. It's too effective at letting you know where a fish could possibly be. That's so they banned it from competition. When I was first taught this, it had just been banned, but he taught me anyway. but this is great for a beginner. So therefore, you have to put on there that it's kind of faded because of the authorities of fly fishing. Because anytime you have these questions, you give them to Team USA, and the questions are being some of the questions are being asked of these guys. Well, we want to know how you're fishing. We want to know how you're approaching the water. Don't tell me what I should do. I want to know how you're doing. These guys are catching 50 fish a day. And if you do approach this particular style of nymphing, back 10 years ago, I sounded like a salesman saying this, that you could actually change your day from like maybe a fish to no fish day to at least a 5 to 7 fish day. I mean, easily. It's that effective in our riverbed, on our river streams. So what happens is you have these questions, and they're all good questions, going to Team USA and the magazines and anything in all the books that are being published and in the podcast. And that even goes to the leaders, because with the leaders, you have to build your own leader. There are some that are already out there, but you still have to know a little bit. So what's happening is we are asking guys like Lance Egan, hey, I want to know exactly how you fish, because I want to fish it that way. You're so effective at it. What you don't realize, what you're asking, is you're asking Lance Egan to give you his master level leader. And what that means is you can spend $50 getting everything you need to create this leader. Not only that, but take a look at this. He has you going down to 7X. Now, in Europe, when you're going for grayling, the stream, which is what they're catching a lot of times over there, and if you've never fished grayling in the stream, they eat a fly and spit it lightning fast. It's so fast, it's almost ridiculous. Whereas a trout will eat, spit it out. A grayling will open their mouth, shut it, and open their mouth again, and it's gone. They're that fast. So, in order for these guys to practice how to fish in Europe, they have this super light, super sensitive leaders that are not meant for the beginner. So there have been guys that have come into the fly shop, and they're so angry at either, it's always Lance that comes up, because Lance is the most well-known. And they're just like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, this is bullshit, I don't like this, I don't like what he has to say. And I'm just like, wait a minute. How are you fishing? Like, why are you throwing 7X? And then I start looking this stuff up, I'm like, oh my goodness, no, why are you fishing this way? We're in the States. We can get away with 4X. Like, we don't have to go to 7. And then when I explain that, you can still use everything you have here, but don't make it so light. So I have a few leaders. You can take pictures of them, or I can text them to you. I didn't print anything up, but we're not in that age. They both start with a 9'0" leader. Keep Erik's on top of these leaders. 9'0". You get 3 to a pack. At the end of that, I have my little key down here. You have your blood knot either to a slinky or to some cider. Now you can get ciders, and I'll show you how it comes in a spool. And then from there, you can either have tippet ring or a micro loop. Some people really love a tippet ring. I prefer a micro loop. From there, it's actually relatively simple when it comes to the 3X and the 4X. About 3 feet of 3X, and about 2 feet of 4X. The way I measure that out on the water, I literally grab my tippet, I take my spool, and I do an arm length. I don't have a measuring tape out there, but there are people who do. I've never had to do that. So I kind of create this a little visual so you can see it, but I think that does a good job up there. And then in the end, I do have some extra line up here so that way I can show you how to create this tag. Because that's very No, like, when you see it done, it's like, oh my goodness, it's so simple. But if I'm gonna try and explain it, it's a pain in the ass to try and understand it. So I'm not gonna explain it, but I do have the stuff up here at the end. If somebody wants to come up and watch, or if you want to video that at the end. So, the slinky and the cider. I prefer the slinky, that's how I learned, and then eventually got to the point where I'm like, well, I don't need the slinky anymore. I want the cider. And you'll eventually get there. It doesn't take long. So, Polish style nymphing. Leading your flies with or faster than the current. Next is check nymphing. There's 4 different styles that we're going to talk about. Check nymphing, whereas Polish was leading your flies with or faster than the current. Check nymphing is leading your flies with or faster than the current. So, Vladi was winning all these competitions. And the Czech guy, if you just watch it, how is this guy winning? What is he doing? And so what they did, well, he's fishing like this, so they went out and tried it. I think what happened was the Czech, not only does it sound nicer and easier to say than Polish style nymphing, Czech nymphing, I believe, was one of the first ones that was actually published and brought to the States. Therefore, Czech nymphing became a thing. Now, some of the old school guys from Team USA will always say, we learned Polish nymphing, this is Polish nymphing, and the Czech saw Vladi do it and took that. Now, I don't know how all this happened, but these are the stories that I get heard, that I hear around the tables after these guys have had a few drinks. And then, even better if you listen to Jack Dennis tell the story. But still, it's the same thing. Now, I have noticed that with Czech style nymphing, that your leaders can be a little bit longer, whereas Polish is very intimate with the water, very fast, short leader, hence the reason why we have longer fly rods. Whereas the Czech, you can flick out and kind of leave up a little bit higher, and that way it allows you to kind of fish deeper stuff. Not too deep, but deeper. French style nymphing. Everything is the same, only it's facing upstream. So if I am fishing right here, and I want to move upstream, and that looks like good water, I just want to just tromp through it, I can switch and start doing some French. So French style, everything is an upstream approach. French would never do this. Hence the reason why we call it European nymphing. We don't have these blocks, I would say, in our minds, or almost like a religion. But when I've had the privilege of meeting with some of these French guys who know a lot about this, that's their way of doing it, and that's the best way of doing it. So you don't question that when you're over there. But here in the States, we can recognize certain areas. We can be like, this might be better approach this way, or I'm going to do this. What happened is that up at the Petolius, I was in a particular location where I only had a few minutes I only had like maybe an hour to fish it. I was in a spot that was not conducive to any of the styles except for French. I was lucky enough to met a guy from France. He taught me how to French style nymph, and that's what I performed over there in the Petolius. And I caught a fish. And it was like the weirdest fighting fish in the world. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Turns out I had 2 fish on. And it's only happened with French style nymphing. So, it is a little weird, and it is slightly foreign to do the upstream stuff and then bring it back toward you. But it's very effective, especially if you're going to be moving from water column to water column. You might as well fish that stuff, because even if you think this is some pretty short water or some shallow water and no fish will be there, there could very well be fish there. So, with these 3 particular styles, you're fishing between 2 and 7 feet of water, running water, so it's shallow and fast. You're limited to your rod length, which is the reason why we have longer fly rods. You can do this kind of stuff with a 9-foot rod, But when you start fishing with a 10, or even a 10.5 foot to 11 foot rod, the difference it makes is pretty incredible. And then of course, you can use a sling, because we are not limiting ourselves to competition rules. There's no reason for us to. But you have to first know that those rules exist. I threw this up here because I wanted to show you that I don't care, and neither should you, how soft your flies land in the water. When you're doing this particular style nymphing, because you are limited to your bottling, you don't have a whole lot of time. Whereas a typical nymph, maybe something like a zebra midge or a copper john, might take 3 to 5 seconds to sink down to where you're actually fishing. So if you think about that, when you've got your indicator out there, and you throw it way over there, and it hits the water, then it's going like 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're fishing. Whereas you're nymphing with these super fast, solid flies, pow, and you're already moving. You're fishing within a half a second to a second. Super fast. So there's a big difference there. So I don't want you to be hesitant about how hard you hit the water with your flies. I've found that it doesn't make a difference. Most of those fish are going to be at the bottom anyway, and you have to get those flies down to the bottom as fast as possible. Okay, so we know the Polish and the Czech and the French. We know the difference between those two. Relatively simple until you start practicing them, but you have to practice them. Spanish. Spanish is my favorite approach. You notice that that leader is longer than 20 feet. That's about anywhere between a 15 to 60 foot leader. In competition rules, you are not allowed to go past 20 feet as far as your leader is concerned. So this goes beyond competition rules here. They won't teach you this. Or they don't really talk about it, they know about it. But nobody's asking that, because nobody really knows to ask that. So if you think about that, so how do I do that? Now, whereas French, I'm limited right there, and Polish and Czech, I'm limited right there. Now I can fish all this stuff right down here. I will say that this is a more complex way to fish, but once you get it, you realize it's not that bad. When I'm guiding, I have people try this, and they love it. Like, why didn't we start doing this? Because now we're catching fish. I always have them start traditional. I'm like, you guys want to try something a little bit different? And they're like, yeah. Will I catch fish? I said, well, yes. But because there's like some controversy, and some people really don't like nymphing for some reason. But if you love the sport, why limit yourself? Try it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But if you do it and you like it, then it's like, there's a new skill. So, there it is. Spanish nymphing. Okay, so what's going on here? Okay, so let me show you the leader real quick and we'll get more into the cast. There is my two-tone indicator. There's a lot of different companies who come up with something, but I just grabbed Rio's because that was the first one that showed up on Google. With this particular leader, it comes off the spool just like that. When it comes to building it, you can't, it's hard to see the red line up there, but there is a red line up there. I have my blood, I have my blood knots connecting my mono. I have 2x mono because this is 2x. So if it snags, or if I snag something on the bottom, and I need to break it off, this is what's going to break, not this. So, the way you get these pieces is you simply take them from the sight indicator. You clip off some of that, and you clip off some of this, and you save it, you set it aside. I have my 2x mono because this is 2x. If you have 3x, use 3x. But I recommend using 2X because you can get away with it. And it'll last a lot longer. And then everything else is the same. At the very end of it, I have my micro loop particular. From here, I do that same thing with the 3X and the 4X.
So if you're using your entire spool of your side material, what is the benefit of cutting it up to increase so many more knots to the system if you just use the whole?
I'll show you here in just a sec. This is more ciders or deck.
Oh.
So you can still add a slinky right here. But if you wanted to do the Spanish style, where you're looking at way out over on the other side of a run, then you want to get rid of the slinky. Because the slinky will hinder that.
So, I see, and the spool is only 30 yards, so you need 2 spools.
Well, meters. It's meters.
I mean,
So there's plenty of them.
okay.
So, Spanish style means all this stuff right here that an indicator would get swept away, or right in this area where a Polish and Czech and French will keep me. Well, now my target is there. When it comes to any one of these styles of nymphing, gone is the traditional fly cast. I have seen YouTube videos saying the same thing, and there they are. Rio's doing it, Orvis is doing it, all of them are doing it. There's a few of them that don't. But I was surprised to see this. They're telling you, oh, you want to cast like this, you want to add a tuck cast, and then there they are just trying to do a regular cast like a 20-foot leader, and it doesn't look that good. What you want to do is you want to anchor your fly. So, if that's my target, I have to anchor my fly back there. And then from there, there's a straight line. So, if you're throwing a shorter leader, if I want to hit right here, and if I want to be accurate, you anchor your fly, pow, and you throw it right to where you want it to go. That movement is a simple parallel movement. You don't have to do a big arc, although you can. So, as you can see, I'm back. I've anchored my fly. And then, I flip forward. You don't want to leave your anchor back there, just sitting there, because it's relatively shallow, typically, where you're going to anchor, and you don't want it catching stuff. So, you anchor. There's where I want it. Quick. You flip it out to where you want it to go. What happens is your flies go up and over you, just like that. And you'd be surprised how much room that takes. And you'll find it out just like I did. When you have a limb that's like 10 feet high, and you think you got plenty of room, and it gets stuck way up higher than that, you're like, wow, that can shoot up and over you. As your fly is traveling, you're going to do something. You're going to do something called a tuck cast. And what that tuck cast is a simple little backward C that allows you to be on top of your flies and allows the flies to move faster and hit first in the water. So, flick. Now this is like, there's no weight on this, so you can't really see it. Pow. So that little tuck cast is just a simple little loop. But you have to wait until your flies travel past your rod tip to do it. It takes some time. But even if you don't get the tuck cast down immediately, it'll come. When it comes to Spanish downloading, it makes a huge difference. It allows me to be right on top of my flies right when they hit. Because there have been times, as soon as my fly hits, just like a dry fly, that the fish eat it immediately. And if you're not doing that tuck cast, and you're waiting for your fly, and you have to bring up your fly rod anyway, you'll miss that fish. It's taken me a little bit to get that, but it comes fast. Now you'll see that I have the red here, and I have the mono. is fairly underwater. And that's because I'm working a particular run that's relatively, slightly deep. It's deeper than your average run. But with this particular style of nymphing, we can do that. We can let it hang. We're not necessarily leading our flies anymore. We're letting it hang with the current and keeping our rod tip high. Now you'll see all these kinds of pictures of guys doing stuff like this. And you'll go out there and try that. But after about 5 minutes, this will start to kill you. With these longer leaders, with these longer fly rods, you can just have your elbow tucked right here. And you flick out, and that's a lot easier on your neck. But to mark a Euro angler that knows what they're doing, they're able to keep that steady throughout the entire run. Instead of sitting bobbling around. If you're bobbling around, you're not really keeping your fly down to where they need to be. So, you keep it steady. There's a yellow, not as deep. The other thing about this is because you're throwing so far out, is that when they do hit, you're going to have some of it come back toward you. And the idea behind that is, well, you just simply use line management like we always do. You pull that in. And then when you need to, you start releasing it back out as your flies drift downstream. But when your flies are hanging in that column, you'll feel them. They'll feel heavy. And then you just follow them down. When a fish hits, it's a pull. And you're able to set the hook on a fish that normally most people wouldn't be able to fish. Now there's a lot of people who really do not like this because you're basically modeling your line. And I've had Jeff Currier get upset at me because I do this. He goes, Erik, give me an hour and I can catch that fish too. I'm like, Jeff, an hour. Give me one cast. That's the difference though. It may not be for you, but try it anyway.
So you can essentially use your arm essentially a mono rig. You don't have fly line out.
You don't have any fly
So
line.
that's how you get farther out without
That's right.
sex.
That's right. And that's why you're anchoring your flies and flicking them out to where they need to be rather than doing a traditional fly. Now, the other thing would be streamers. With this particular style, you can be jigging your streamers downstream. So you can be flicking your flies out, letting them see, and as they're going downstream, you just buck, buck, buck. I guess I can use this, couldn't I? And that is so effective. It's crazy effective. The first person who taught me how to do that was Ryan Spillers. But he was doing it before this was even a cool thing to do. And then I forgot about it. And then Chris Preston said, hey, have you been doing this jigging style thing? I haven't done that in such a long time. Spillers first taught me about it. And then we went out and goes, okay, well, I've tied some flies, let's try it out. And he raked in a humongous bull trap. I was like, give me that damn thing. So there's all these different ways and techniques that you can still approach, even with this mono or in your own. So now we know Spanish, Polish, Czech, and French. Those are your 4 styles. And there's your lead. So, I still want to give credit where credit is due. The team, Fly Fishing Team USA. We wouldn't know this if it wasn't for them or for competition. Regardless of what you think of competition, it's still strength of that. It was Jeff Currier who first medaled as a Team USA member. When that happened, that got some attention. That's a cool fish. That's a cool fish. Oh, it's a tiger fish, yeah. I'll totally agree. I totally man crush on him. In Africa. So, he was the first American to medal. And that got a lot of corporation sponsorship to back up Team USA after that, because they got some recognition. Back then, even the European style nymphing stuff was still very new and very shunned by a lot of Americans. Devin Olson was another member of Team USA who medaled. And just last year, Brett Bishop, here in Idaho, here in Boise, Idaho, Courier's from Idaho as well. But these guys have now medaled, and Team USA is now not a team to mess with. Because together as a team, they can take first. But to be an individual medal, so hard. But these guys are now, because of Lottie and then their teaching, and then now we can create our own ways that these guys have done. So I want you to know that there are definitely still things we can learn from them, especially when it comes to different rigs and their flies. Even if they're leaders, if you want to up your game a little bit, go try out their leaders once you become familiar with how you want to approach the water, what might work for you. So when it comes to flies, this is the typical American fly. It's a copper john, right? It has a tail, has a rib body, has a thorax, right? Has some legs, has a wing casing, everything a growing nymph needs. When it comes to Euro flies, they kind of strip it all down to just like these colorful little cute flies. But they're so effective. They're so effective. They've weeded out all that stuff that we all know and love, that we think needs to be a part of the net. They get even crazier with all these different colors. And there are times when certain colors work better than other colors. Blue, for instance, is like one of my favorites. Now, Preston, which is like, I don't know what the hell you're doing with this stupid blue nymph. I've never caught a fish on it before. So, maybe the blue one works well for me because I have confidence in it. And maybe he doesn't have confidence in it, so it doesn't work for him. But I've also noticed that a lot of times it doesn't matter as long as you're getting your flies down in front of the fish's face. I typically throw size 12s and 10s. Seldomly do I go down to a 14, even more seldomly with 16. I'm throwing big stuff, and I'm still bringing a lot of fish. There are times when I'm in the desert streams where smaller flies work better. But still, you don't have to limit yourself to such tiny little flies. Remember, we're very limited on the amount of space that we have to fish because we're using these rods, and we're limited to our rod length. So because of that, a bigger fly, super heavy, can get down way faster. When it comes to fly rods, this is also something derived from a member of Fly Fishing Team USA. The guy who taught me, Erik, came up with these fly rods. The Shadow, the Echo Shadow, and the Echo Shadow X. Now there was a Shadow, just a shadow, but he developed that fly rod back when a lot of people did not like European style nymphing. Why didn't they like it? Because it was foreign. People felt that, well, we used to nymph without indicators, so they were just against it. And there are still people who are very much against it. And I don't know why. If you love this sport, it's worth this trying out. See if it's for you, and if it's not, I tried it, not for me. That's okay. But at least try. So, Pete came out with a fly rod, a purely, really awesome fly rod, the Shadow, that was really meant for European style nymphing. Had a soft tip, it was super long. It was the first fly rod over 10 feet ever. But people were freaked out about it. They didn't know about Euro nymphing. What if a hatch comes off and I only have this Euro rod? Now you can still cast with a Euro rod, it's just a slightly different cast. So what they did is they had to come up. They came up with the Echo Shadow 2. It still has the sensitive tips, meant for Euro style nymphing, but you can also throw a regular fly line on there and it'll still cast like a regular rod. So that makes people feel more comfortable. Now that everybody knows about Euro style nymphing, people want specific Euro rods, and they want really good Euro rods. The Shadow X, which I personally have one, and I'll let you guys check it out. In my opinion, the 10.5 3-weight is. So it's also the only rod that comes with all this really cool stuff that you can back weight the rod. So you'll have these really super high-end fly rods that are both like 2 ounces. But why does this one feel heavier? Why does this one feel lighter? Even when I switch hands. It's because the weight is at the heart of the fly rod. So even though you have an echo that might be 10.5 feet, if you were just to hold that fly rod, it would like bounce, the tip would bounce pretty hard on the ground. But if you take off the butt section and add a little bit of weight to it, suddenly it becomes really light, especially if you're throwing mono-rigs. So therefore, it's not as heavy when you're out fishing all day. The only one to do that, the Erik. Of course, he's kind of crazy when it comes to fly fishing. He really thinks about it on a completely different level, even way further than what I would ever consider to think about it. So, because of that, we have to give credit to Fly Fishing Team USA. They brought back a better approach. Within 1 to 3, maybe even 5 years ago, it's really kind of exploded. The Euro scene, like really exploded. But before that, like 10 years ago, the slinky was huge. Vladi's worm was like the big thing. And it was just, and some of those things, it's a shame, but some of those things are starting to fade away because they're no longer allowed in competition. And if you do this, you'd be surprised how fast your skills will grow. When you're fishing the Boise River and you're doing this tight nymphing, at first you might say, hey, I'm doing this right, but I'm not catching any fish. I should be catching fish right now. But no, move. That's just the Boise River. You hit a hole, you go hit another one. That looks good. Nothing there. And then you go to a hole and you rip up 7 fish. Holy cow, 7 fish. And then you're fishing that hole and you're like, what? Where the hell are the fish? Well, you just ripped them all out. Go to the next one. And go catch 5 more. And before you know it, you will become so confident in your abilities to fish that you will be moving so fast in the water, efficiently and effectively. That is all I have for you. So I really hope you guys do. I really hope you try it out. And if you want to see how I do some of the tagging, you can come up here. But any other questions? Yeah.
No, you go. Are the flies always made with tungsten beads?
Yes.
Always.
We want them to be fast.
All right.
Now, traditionally, you weren't allowed to use those beads in competition. I believe that's changed, but I'm not 100% on that. Which is the reason why you'll see something like a Frenchie. Now, Frenchie has like a pink around the collar of the fly. And then you have some of the other ones with green around the collar and some of them with red. That wasn't to attract the fish. That was to let the angler know how heavy that particular fly was in competition. So if you weren't allowed to have a tungsten bead on there, all the weight was hidden underneath the fly. So everybody was thinking to themselves, what? You know, this Frenchie works so good because look at the way this light, this UV light shines on this fly. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with how heavy is this particular one versus this one. Because in competition, you don't have a whole lot of time. You want to catch as many fish as possible. And it all had to do with, this is the fly that's light. So like for instance, if you're going to try this on the Hawaii, I wouldn't recommend super heavy flies. Most of those fish sit mid-column anyway. And if you're using the super heavy flies, you're going to bring up a bunch of moss and crap from the bottom anyway. But there are some heavy stuff that you can use out there, and a lot of it you can just wave across after you're done hitting it. That's another thing I almost forgot. After every single cast, at the very end of your cast, you want to give a slight little hook set. So if you're throwing, at the very end, give a slight little hook set. Not enough to flick it up the tree behind you. Just a little hook set. You'd be surprised how many fish you catch this way. Yes. Something's happened at the very end. A fish could be there, and I'm done. Set the hook. The same thing if you're doing another way, like would be, if, say for instance, that's not working, not catching fish that way. You can swing it out. And that will sometimes entice fish to come and grab it if they see something to it. I've had that work as well. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, so, do you recommend, like, having a separate reel for your own nymphing?
I have, yes.
So then you have like your regular reel, then you have another reel set with your Euro nymphing stuff? Okay, so already created.
That's right.
Okay, and can you know now on a regular, I have a, I think it's a Remington.
9 foot, something like that?
10 foot for a 5-wood.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I can
Especially
do
if
that.
it's 10 foot, yeah.
Okay, and also,
You will find that with a 5-weight, because a 10-foot 5-weight acts more like a 6-weight, and a 10 4-weight acts more like a 5-weight. I prefer, the most universal fly rod, in my opinion, is a 10-foot 4-weight.
I think that's what mine is a 10-foot 4-weight. And one more.
Yeah.
Okay. What 2 flies you recommend? Like, most Euro nymphing, you have the 2 flies.
Right.
You're gonna have
So
a
you
heavier
have-
fly and a lighter fly, or?
That's really good that you brought that up. Let me see if I can go back to the meters real quick. When it comes to your flies. So there's your tag flies, right? Your droppers are up here. Your flies that are at the very end, typically your heavier flies, but you can switch them if you want. I personally fish with my flies, which is called your point fly, at the end is the heavy one. And your tag fly is the lighter of the two.
Okay, so that box of flies you showed look like perdigons.
Yeah.
And so what would be your lighter fly would you use?
Oh, I would, any tag fly you want. Really.
Like a wolf's worm?
Yeah, you can use that. Something, usually the one at the very end is your heavy one.
Yeah.
That's the one that's gonna get your stuff down there. And then not only that, but you can just feel that one down there. And if something takes the lighter fly, you feel that as well. The idea behind that is if you have your heavy fly here and you have your light fly down here, you don't really know where that one's at.
Okay.
Is it up here? No. Whereas your heavy one, you know everything's tight.
Okay, so, but like when you use a midge or a nymph or a merger?
I use, so I personally like to use like a rainbow perdigon or a hotspot hare's ear,
Okay.
a jig style hotspot hare's ear. And they're usually either a 10 or a 12. And I usually use those ones that I drop. I even have that blue one. It all just depends on how I'm feeling that day. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I have found that being really critical about your fly is not that important. The important thing is getting it in front of your fish. Because if the fish are eating stuff and spitting them out fast, they're probably eating everything that's coming in front of their face. They're so good at spitting out flies. They're probably spitting out little twigs and little pieces of whatever, you know. So in my opinion, like it's more important that you get your fly down there, not so important as to what color I'm using. It's just like,
I don't mean what color, I mean like what pattern.
or even the pattern.
Yeah.
Even the pattern. However, there are times when the fish will key in on something black. They'll key in on something in that olive brown. And on the Boise River, this happens, especially during caddis time in the summer. They'll want that watery olive.
So you just keep switching up till you find something to take.
Yeah. You had a question?
I did, the fly box that you showed with the European style flies, can we get those here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know we sell them at Idaho Angler. Anglers has some. Even, the Eco Lounge has them, TRR has them. Yeah, they're not new anymore. Everybody has them.
What's the evil one?
Anything
You
else?
just go in there and ask them to show you their perdigons.
Yeah, yeah.
That's usually what they look like. That's-
So simple. If you've ever thought about tying, these are great flies to tie because they're so simple.
Yeah, they're fun too.
Yeah, it's like tying a Cooper baby. However, getting all the stuff like the little light and light, I mean, that stuff's expensive. But still, it's one of those flies where you can get to be really creative with what you're tying and still catch fish with it.
So it seems like when you've got these arrays, of lines and knots, is there any particular spot that's weaker than another?
Typically the 4X, which is the reason why I have it at the end, because usually if anything's gonna get caught, it's gonna be something down here. Whereas if I had this at 2X and 2X, which I could, and if I decide to, like, if it gets caught in the water or something like that, and I have to break it off, and it breaks way up here, well, now I'm having to redo this whole entire thing. Whereas this stuff is the easy thing, it's just an arm length, and then I can just retie that on really fast. And it happens. Because you are fishing flies. Anything else? Good, cool. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys try it. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm usually online, on Underwater Trout on Instagram, or if you message Idaho Angler, I receive those messages through Instagram. That will go directly to me. Okay?
Thank you, Erik.
Thank you.